Hey guys, Philip Jackson here, pastor of young adults from Reach Young Adult Ministries. Got a special episode for you today. Our new pastor to college students, Taylor Gabbert, joins me to talk about what God's doing in college ministry and here at Evergreen Baptist Church. Here we go. There is a stirring. I want to welcome you guys to the Reach podcast. This is a special episode. I have the distinct privilege of introducing my friend, Taylor Gabbert. Many of you are familiar with Taylor and his messages. He's been a teacher and been a member of the Reach community for a while now. But it was just announced on Sunday that Taylor is joining us on staff here at Evergreen as the pastor to college students. And so we thought we would just take a second and let him share a little bit about his story and how God brought him here, and also kind of his vision for the Reach College ministry, how that incorporates as a part of what we're doing already. And just, Taylor, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. Thanks, Philip. I'm excited to be able to do this podcast, and it's actually official. Now the pastor to college students, that's really exciting. Well, we've kind of had it on our radar for a minute as a possibility, but it's a real thing now, and that's awesome. So let's see. About myself, I guess I'm finishing up my time in the military. I actually just got the paperwork to be done this month, so that's exciting. And
what did you do in the military?
Stuff and things.
Stuff and things with guns?
Yeah,
stuff. You got to wear green and...
Yep.
War green. You get to wear green.
War green. It's a special color. I was an infantryman for most of the time. I finished in a recruiting spot, so I got to do some fun stuff. Jumped out of airplanes and shot guns, and then there's a lot of boring stuff too. So there's paperwork. Recruiting was pretty much all boring, never fun. There was no planes to jump out of in recruiting, so that was a waste.
You would think they would incorporate that somehow.
More people would probably sign up. Or
they might.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, so I finished up my time in the military, and the interesting thing about that was God was clearly at work that entire time in teaching me and growing me and making me a certain kind of person. And at the same time that is awesome, that God was working through that and teaching me, the military largely ended up being a time in my life that I was doing my own thing. Really just walking my own way. And I kind of had this apathetic view towards God. Pretty much my whole 20s. God just kind of catches up. You do whatever the desires of your heart are, or whatever desires God has placed on your heart, and you just do those things, and then God just kind of blesses you and helps you out along the way. And I also had this intermingling of the American dream with Christianity, which I think a lot of us do. This idea that okay, well, I'm a Christian, so God's also going to give me a wife and kids and a house and a car and a dog and all this
obviously
perfect stuff.
Of course.
Right? Yeah, why not?
The trajectory.
Yeah, the trajectory, right. So basically my life had this rock bottom point. It collapses around me. I lose everything, including, and probably the cherry on top moment was I lost my dream job. And essentially they didn't fire me. It got to this point where they were just you've got some stuff going on in your life, and you're just not as effective as we'd like you to be. So we're gonna move you to a different position. I was like, oh, thanks for the support and help as I'm going through all of these other things in my life. You just said, instead of helping you, we're just gonna move you along,
get you out of our hair.
Right. So I was like, oh, okay. So the interesting thing is if you've attached the American dream to your Christian lifestyle, what do you do when everything disappears? Because then you're left holding nothing, and you're going, okay. And I was very mad. I was very mad at God, and God had let me down, and why did all this happen? And He failed me. And so then I'm going to get out of the Army, and I end up finding the recruiting job here in Tulsa. And I thought, well, that's where I'm going anyway, so why not let the Army pay me for a couple more years while I'm there? So I come back, serve in a recruiting position, and that's when God really started to work on my heart and restore me. And essentially, one of the things that God showed me was how much of what happened in my life was a consequence of my own decisions. Not living my Christian faith is what led to the crash and the burn, not because God just didn't care or just wanted to let me fall through.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is that coming back to Tulsa in that broken state and starting to, I met you and I got plugged into the Reach community and I started learning who God was and what he wanted for my life. And the interesting thing about that was I had this passion early as, I came back, I was 29, and I came back and I'm basically reaching out to young adults in the Reach community because I had this passion to say, like, hey, don't do things the way I did them. Like, there's a right and a wrong way to live your 20s, and I definitely have just spent all my 20s living it the wrong way, and God is showing me how foolish that was.
Yeah.
And like, you see that at the time, it felt like a coincidence. Almost like a coincidence. I mean, it was clear that God was using me to, like, spread that message, but you just don't know what God has, like, in store. So as I started doing that, I started ministering college kids and young adults, and I got plugged in at, like, BCM too. So I'm doing college ministry. I'm working with college students. And then the interesting thing is not realizing that God is training me for a job that no one's even thought of yet. Like, doesn't exist. No one's thought of it. There's no plan for this. It's just like the circles that God was putting me in was specifically to train me for what is now a reality,
right.
Pastor to college students, So that's been really cool to just see how God has unfolded that. I have a heart for BCM. I have a heart for college students, a heart for young adults that all predate ever thinking about the idea of being the pastor to college students. And then the cool thing is Evergreen senior leadership, really recognizing, okay, where's the gap? Like, we graduate these kids from high school and we have Reach, but Reach, if you go to Reach right now, it's trending. It's still a young adult community, but it's trending towards the older end of that spectrum.
Right, like mid to late 20s.
Right. And so we're missing something. Like, where are the 18 through 24-year-olds? Like, where's that group, or 23-year-olds? And so the question became, okay, how do we, like, the philosophy here, right, is that people follow people, not programs.
Right.
So, like, it doesn't matter what program we put in place. The key is we needed to apply a person against the problem. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I get the distinct, privilege of being able to do, is be the person that's God has been training me to be applied to this problem specifically. Mm-hmm. Like, how do we shepherd that younger end of the young adult community? It's awesome because I've been your, kind of like your right-hand man for 2+ years now. And now to be able to come alongside you in the ministry in an official capacity is a dream come true. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't want to leave, but I was willing to go wherever God was going to take me. And I think as soon as I got to that place of saying, okay, God, like, you tell me to move, I'm moving. And then God was like, perfect. I want you exactly where you are.
Right. And that's honestly, those are some of the hardest conversations that we had, was praying for God's will to be done, and also praying that we would honor him and how we respond to it, and not being eager to do whatever it is that we wanted, but actually making decisions based on what God had in store for you, but not making assumptions, trying to set expectations. Right. And it's kind of cool on this end too, because we have, like you said, we've been working together in young adult ministry for several years now, and one of the things that's unique about how God has been moving here at Evergreen is that the majority of the pastoral staff has come from within the church.
Right.
And it's amazing that one of the things that Paul tells Timothy is that those who have been set aside for ministry should be, number one, that they shouldn't be novices, they shouldn't be beginners, they should know their faith and know that it's theirs and own it. But then secondly, that they would dedicate themselves to being examples. And he says that in 1 Timothy chapter 4. To be an example in all these things. And what's awesome is that God has allowed you to develop influence and to serve people and just to have a genuine finger on the pulse of what's happening in young adult ministry. And it's exciting because most churches, if they have someone who does young adult ministry, typically it's young families, it's young singles, it's college students, it's this whole giant swath of people, and it's just not really feasible to do that.
Right.
And having you come on the team really allows us to have that designated investment to show that college students are a priority.
Right. And I think calling them a priority is key here, right? Because, and the part of the problem was Philip, for as great of a pastor as you are, and as all the things that we love about Philip, it's like you had this huge spectrum of responsibility, because in the summer you're literally going to Falls Creek Consumer Summer to connect with seniors, and yet every Sunday you're teaching the young marrieds class. So you're talking to kids from 16 all the way to, you know, early young marrieds having kids, and it's just this massive task. And so it's kind of unrealistic for one person. And so the answer became, okay, he's doing a great job balancing a task that's too big for one man, so we need to put somebody else in the game and apply them specifically in a way that says, hey, this group is a priority. We want to shepherd them. We want to love on them. We want to bring them along. And you know what? Hey, I'm pumped. I'm going to go to Falls Creek and Super Summer every summer. That sounds great.
So what, as you look at college ministry and what God's really laid on your heart, what are some of the priorities? What are some of the things that you see as being necessary and important for young adults as they're coming through college?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is I was early in this process, I started asking God, okay, what's the vision? Like, what's the point? What are we actually doing with college ministry, and what are we trying to accomplish? And what it became very clearly what it is not a ministry based on who's enrolled in college classes at this moment.
Right.
Like, that's not the point. And it doesn't matter, like, having a college pastor, that is a title, right? And I have a class that we're calling College and Young Singles. But it's not about whether or not you're in college classes or whether you're going to be in college classes next semester or whatever. I had to find a different way to define the demographic that we're trying to reach specifically. And it became this. God showed me that when you're in high school, largely, and this doesn't apply to everybody, but largely, you kind of come to church because your parents bring you to church. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of like, yeah, this is like what we do. And I think that, and then, you know, by the time you're in your 30s and you're having kids, you're like, oh, I was raised to go to church, and like I'm having kids, like I need to take them to church. I need to like bring my family to church. Yeah. And the problem is that we lose people in their 20s because for the first time when you get out of the house when you're 18 is you have to go, wait a minute, do I go to church? Is this my faith? Like, do I believe this? You have to own it. Because nothing, like, your parents aren't there to get you out of bed on Sunday morning anymore. And next thing you know, you've been in college for, you know, maybe you did 4 years or 2 years at TCC or whatever. And next thing you know, it's been 5, 6, 7 years. You haven't even gone to church. Yep. And so the defining trait became this. God said, you're going to answer 2 questions in this class. You're going to ask the question, is this what I believe? And then the second question is, if I believe this, what does that mean for my life? How do I live this out? And that became so much of a better way to define who should come to that class. Either you're in that stage of life, whether that's you're 18 to 21, or maybe you're still figuring out your early 20s, and you're starting to ask that, or you're still asking that question of, what do I believe? Do I believe in this God? Do I believe in Jesus? And then the second thing is, okay, once I've discovered that, once I know what I believe, don't do what I did, right? And just, okay, that's cool, I believe that. And then you just kind of forget that there's an active living that out part. Right. And so, and then what I've done in my class so far is I've said, hey, come to this class, and we're going to discuss what do we believe? What do we believe about God? And then we're going to discuss how to live that out. And you fit into one of 2 groups in my opinion, or in my mind. You are either figuring that out, or you have just figured that out. So if you're figuring that out, great, you're in the right place. Let's talk. And if you've just figured that out, if you're one of these, I've got a few people in there that are in their mid to later 20s, and I've asked them, I've said, hey, keep coming and grab hold of some of these younger kids and start discipling them, start showing them what it looks like, start giving them like, hey, I was just where you are. Let me show you what God showed me. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're in that later stage where you finally figured out, hey, having my quiet time every day is important, and praying to God every day is important, and sharing my testimony and telling people who Jesus is important. okay, come here, scoop up an 18, 19, 20-year-old and who's trying to figure out, are these things important? Do I really believe them? And help them figure it out, you know? And because I can't disciple, I mean, there's 20 people in that class right now. I'm not going to, I can't effectively disciple 20 people to that level, but I can teach what the Word of God says, and I can ask leaders to grab hold of 1 or 2 people and disciple them.
Mm-hmm. Well, not to mention, like, think about if you're a young adult and you're in the Tulsa metro area, just in our little town. Okay, Tulsa is a moderately sized city. I mean, in the total metro, I think we have about 1 million people. But I ran some statistics from the Census Bureau a year or so ago, and I realized that it's easy for young adults, especially in Tulsa, to think I'm by myself. There's no place for me to be, and the reality is that there are over 100,000 people in the Tulsa metro area between the ages of 18 and 35.
Yeah,
100,000 people. In the college demographic, it's about a third of that. So when you think about the people who are in the same stage of life as you are, what that means for you as you're figuring out who you are and who you want to be, being a part of a godly community is a huge thing. And God has provided some pretty incredible young adult ministry communities, not just here at Evergreen, but all over the metro.
Right.
And one of the things that we love about Reach, the whole reason it's named Reach, is because we want to reach young adults.
Right.
We really do. And that means that we're going to prioritize college students. And in South Tulsa, there's not a college really close. We've got TCC about 2 miles away, 2 or 3 miles away. NSUBA is in Broken Arrow. We have TU way on the other side of town. And there's other regional universities around. But the reality is that Tulsa is a place, if you're a young adult, where you can find true godly community, and you don't have to wait till you're married and you got kids. Take your faith seriously. This is something that you have to own right now, today. And asking these questions is really good.
Right.
Okay, so if somebody wants to get a hold of you and they want to contact you, how do they do that? Do you have a social media page? Do you have email?
They just have to say my name 3 times in the mirror, and I'll show up. It's like Beetlejuice.
Oh, that's terrifying. Taylor Gabbert.
Yeah. So that's the plan. That's how we're gonna market to people, is scare them to death.
That sounds not good. Yeah. Please strike. I'm going to take that out.
So the reality is that the way that we're planning on, or if you want to get a hold of Reach, I mean, honestly, the best thing you can do is, hey, show up 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. We're doing a Sunday school class. We're at Evergreen Baptist Church. Reach is on Tuesday nights. Doors open at 6:30. Service starts at 7. It's a great community. You can get plugged in. But we also have Instagram pages. We have Reach College and Reach Instagram pages, and those are both effective ways to get a hold of us, Pastor Philip and myself. So, yeah, just reach out, get plugged in. I mean, you don't have to be isolated, and the true enemy wants nothing more than for you to be alone in this world.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Well, that's all we have for today. I know it's short and sweet compared to what you guys are used to on here, but we'll be back. We're going to have some more conversations throughout the year. But I wanted to just encourage you all, if you don't know Taylor, shoot him a message on the Reach College Instagram. It's reach.college, or you can contact us through the reach.tulsa Instagram page also, or you can find us on the website, evergreenbc.org. I want to encourage you that you have a place, you're not alone, and you belong here at Reach. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Hey guys, this is Philip Jackson, pastor to young adults at Evergreen Baptist Church. I want to invite you to come to Reach. We meet every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. at Evergreen Church in South Tulsa, just east of Mingo on 111th Street. The mission of Reach Tulsa is to cultivate a young adult community that's defined by real transformation and the sincere pursuit of a godly life through training in biblical disciplines, personal development, and intentionally transitioning into independence as mature members of the body of Christ. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe to our content. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Reach Young Adult Ministry is a part of Evergreen Baptist Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. For more information and additional lessons, please visit our website, evergreenbc.org.